Hello and welcome to episode 478 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the co-founders here at ETR, and we are coming off of a Joe Mixon did not forget how to play football kind of week. Yes, that's right. Joe Mixon went completely nuclear on Sunday, breaking the slate with 22 carries, 153 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, plus 4 catches, 58 receiving yards, and another touchdown, which honestly, in itself, isn't really that interesting to me at all. I only bring it up because it's part of a larger point I wanted to make, that thinking that we can watch games and pick out a dude's talent, thinking that a guy is slow or not good, it's just a really, really, really dangerous game to play. And I'm not saying that game is impossible to play. I'm really not. I know some people can do it. I really think Silva is a savant with stuff like this. But for me personally, I do not trust what I see when it comes to evaluating talent at all. I let the coaches who are with these guys every day, seeing them practice and work out, I let them tell me what they think of a guy's talent with the usage. And to me, that's the key, the usage. Are these guys have they been so bad that their role is actually changing? For example, Leonard Fournette has sucked this year, and the coaches see it. They're mixing in Rachaad White a ton more. Is DeAndre Swift injury prone? The coaches see it. They're reducing his role. That is tangible. Christian McCaffrey, the coaches clearly don't think he's limited by injuries or is injury prone. He's getting 25 to 30 touches a week. But Joe Mixon, his usage has been incredible. I mean, Joe Mixon has had one of the best roles in the entire league all season. And seemingly every Monday for the last month, I've tweeted about how absurd Joe Mixon's role is, even as recently as 7 days ago. Coming into week 9, Joe Mixon was on pace for 72 catches, led the entire league in carries from inside the 10-yard line with 19, was getting 16 carries per game. And almost every response was, yeah, but what's it matter? He can't score. He can't get any yards. Adam, volume doesn't matter when you suck. And I do get that take, I do. But when someone is getting this kind of elite usage and is very clearly, has talent as both a runner and a receiver, I mean, you are playing a very dangerous game by saying, well, my eyes tell me he can't do it. And that's not to say that Mixon was a lock to go off against the Panthers. I mean, obviously he wasn't. In week 7, Mixon was home against the Falcons. Obviously a really good spot. He goes 17, 58, 1 rushing and 333, 0 receiving. Fine, but not a smash. But people, I think at high stakes knew that this Joe Mixon thing was a bet worth making. I think Mixon would have been a lock in cash if Damian Harris doesn't get ruled out, making Ramondre Stevenson a lock. Silva called Joe Mixon the running back to build your DFS teams around. Ricky D, friend of the show, called Mixon the best play on the slate. Mixon was only 12% in the $20 Millie Maker, but he was 21.5% in the 4K and 30% in the Thunderdome. So look, obviously you can poke holes in Mixon. The offensive line has been bad. He hasn't been efficient, but 3 down plus goal line back with good pass game role and good quarterback play at 6,500 home against the Panthers, that's always going to be a good play. Is it going to be a good play at 40% owned in tournaments? Maybe not. At 12% owned, like he was? Of course. Other big story from this past week in DFS has to do with cash and all the dupes. By dupes, I just mean duplicates, same team. Hopefully you read my cash lineup review article. I tried to explain at the bottom how I think about these kind of weeks. I thought the quote-unquote right team in week 9 cash on DraftKings was incredibly obvious. Once Damian Harris and Darren Waller were ruled out, Ramondre and Foster Moreau were locks. Eckler against Atlanta without Big Mike and Keenan, I personally thought that was a lock. Travis Etienne for 25 plus touches home against the Raiders at 6,300, lock. Josh Palmer, 5,100 with those aforementioned guys out, lock. Amon-Ra, 6,600 in the Coors Field. I was always playing that too. And when there's this many clear-cut locks and you're only filling 3 spots, one is defense. Yeah, of course a lot of people are going to land on the same team for cash. It's not cheating or colluding or whatever else people want to say. What I would say is that in these spots, playing double ups is not great. When there's going to be so many duplicates of the quote unquote right team, playing double ups just isn't great. You are likely drawing to some kind of chop. And so I really try in these weeks to get as much head-to-head action as possible. I do that every single week. I try to get as much head-to-head action as possible. But if I was, normally a double up bro, I'd really go for head-to-head in these kind of weeks. Because if someone has the same team as me in head-to-head, no problem. We chop. DraftKings refunds the rake on Monday. Perfect. No big deal. And if I play head-to-head and someone doesn't have the same team as me, well, then I think I'm a really big favorite. Now, I know, as I've said a zillion times before, this advice is for lower stakes players. If you're trying to play big in cash and you're not Adam Levitan, AK, you're not someone that gets a lot of action because people want to battle the sex jokes guy, I get that it's hard to get good head-to-head action at a high volume, at high stakes for most people. And in weeks like this, when the double ups are really, really bad, if I couldn't get that action, I probably just wouldn't play cash. The problem, of course, is that you often don't know until it's too late that the duplicates in cash are going to be out of control. You have to register early in the week, and I get all that. But again, I really strongly believe that 90% or more of the people listening to this show are trying to play less than 500 a week in cash. And at that level, you should undoubtedly be getting more than enough good head-to-head action. Last thing I wanted to bring up are some thoughts around projected ownership. Obviously, for DFS tournaments, projected ownership is incredibly important. We put a ton of time and effort into it, both algorithmically and manually. Right now, our ownership projections are for the Millie Maker, the $20 massive lotto on DraftKings, and also the big large field lotto on FanDuel. The problem with this is the Millie Maker is a unique beast. There are just so many phone shitter lineup bros in there. And I think there's plenty of sharper players that aren't even playing the Millie Maker at all. So it kind of turns into an island, a one-off tournament, its own unique beast, if you will. Leone had the idea that we should, instead of doing projected ownership for the Millie Maker, we should do it for the slant. The slant is the $9 large field GPP, much smaller field. And the ownerships there, we know, because we looked at it, the ownerships there line up more with what we think the kind of contests are that more of you are playing, where the more the single entry 3 max stuff. And we're not certain about this. I put up a poll on Twitter yesterday, so please check that out and vote. And I just want to be clear, this is not me saying that anyone should be playing the slant. I personally don't play the Millie Maker or the slant. You can read more about how I think about contest selection in the article in the Evergreen tab on establishedrun.com. But the idea here is that we think many of you are playing contests where the ownership more closely correlates to the slant than the Millie Maker, period. And obviously, ideally, we would have projected ownership for large field, low stakes, and then also projected ownership separately for single entry 3 max at higher stakes. It's certainly a priority for us. We are working on it, but it's difficult. We don't want to put something out there we don't think is as accurate as it can/should be. The whole idea of ETR is that we're doing everything 10 out of 10 on quality. It's why we don't have, baseball and UFC and tennis and fucking cartoons of hairy horses or whatever else. We just want to be the best at what we do, not a 7 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10 on a zillion things. That's like really, really incredibly important to us. So anyway, just want to give some context on where we're at with all the projected ownership stuff. Hope that all makes sense. Okay. Do want to get to listener questions here, but before I do, want to remind everyone that if you're not getting the best line when you're betting sports, where you're betting props, you're making me physically ill. You're making me puke. And I don't want anybody, I know nobody out there wants to make me puke. I just can't take it if you're not getting the best line. Go to the props and betting tab on our site, find your state, sign up for the book, all the books, so that you can both shop for the best lines and get the bonuses described in the ETR Sportsbook bonus offers page. Just an absolute no-brainer to take advantage of all this stuff while the sites are spending so much money on customer acquisition in the form of bonuses. All right, enough is enough. Let's get to everyone's favorite portion of the program, the listener questions. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. All right. Thanks so much to everyone for the questions. This is the final set I am getting to, clearing out the inbox here. I will ask for more questions on Monday afternoon, so stay tuned for that if you have one. Going to do 8 questions here today. Question 1 from great friend of the show, Sammy Reed. He says, Adam, I recently had a second kid and immediately got demoted down to the practice squad of Team Sex. I now have a toddler and a baby, and the big issue is that one of these little gremlins is always awake. Obviously, when the toddler goes to sleep, we can put the baby in the crib while we take care of the old one eye to the optometrist, but then she watches. Now, personally, I don't give a fuck. I'll cite the medically accepted conclusion that long-term memories don't start forming until kids are a couple years old. But my wife, Sammy's wife, he's saying, is worried that watching her parents knock boots could have a negative subconscious effect on the baby later in life. And to be completely honest, it is a little weird. We're just trying to do the matrimonial polka, and that baby is just smiling, judging, watching. Adam, you have 2 kids. You've gone through this shit. How do I circumvent these little cock blockers and get the horizontal refreshment I so richly deserve? Thanks. Man, what a artistic and well thought out question from Sammy, showing his vocabulary off. Beautiful stuff. First, I'd say this about young kids and the hashtag team. The most angry I've ever been with Mike Leone by a wide margin is when he told me that he allows his kid to sleep in the bed with him and his wife. When he told me that, I was just incensed. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't stop thinking about it for a week. The first rule of having a kid, forget about everything, the nurses, the doctors, your parents, everybody tells you. The first rule of having a kid is he/she never sleeps in the bed with you and your spouse, ever. I don't care if the kid is crying, screaming, sick. You set the precedent early that he's not sleeping in the bed, and you never relent, because you need to keep something for yourself. Obviously, taking a shit is one of the most peaceful parts of my day. I take 30 to 40-minute showers just to be by myself without stress for a bit. And of course, if you ever want to be on the hashtag team again, you got to keep these gremlins out of your bed no matter what. So yes, that means the baby's crib is not in your room. It's in another room. That means when the toddler wakes up and says he wants to sleep in your bed, you tell him to fuck off and go back to his bed. It's not easy, but it has to be done. And so, no, Sammy, I've never gotten the quote unquote horizontal refreshment I so richly deserve, as you said, with one of my kids in the room. I mean, my God, man, that's like a lock to scar them for life. I don't care what the research shows on memory. So clean it up, Sammy, get it together. Question 2 from Joe. He says, have you ever considered getting a hair transplant? I don't mean to be offensive, just seems like an effective solution if that's something you care about. Yeah, Joe, I've actually never considered it. I'm really kind of crazy about natural stuff in life and body. My hair, I mean, this is just the way it is. And messing with it disrupts the natural course of life, I think. I don't really like fake titties. I don't really like fake lips, plastic surgery. I don't know, man. I'm happy for anyone to do whatever they want. It's just not for me personally. Even the vasectomy that I did, I don't feel great that I've disrupted the natural flow of my sperm. I don't feel great about it. Our bodies are so incredibly evolved. They can solve so much on their own. I really think messing with that is asking for trouble, for cascading side effects. Everything in our body is connected. I sprained my ankle, and for some reason my back hurts. Our bodies are really incredible. As for the hair stuff, I mean, if I'm being totally honest, if I was single, I might look into it. The hair, whatever, transplant, whatever, I don't know. The real problem is I've always hated my hair, I've always worn hats from the time I was like 8. So we're going on 32 years now of hat wearing. But I do get that it's almost at the point, or probably past the point, where it's unacceptable. At 40 years old, how much longer can I really wear a hat? I don't know. There's definitely spots where it's embarrassing for sure. Is it more embarrassing than my disgusting head and scalp? I don't know. But like if I was grinding Tinder or something like that, I couldn't really have a bunch of pictures with a hat, right? I'd be drawn dead for swipes or whatever it's called. So in that spot, yeah, maybe I'd consider it. But in my current situation, no, I don't think I'd be going for the hair transplant, Joe. I just don't care enough. Question 3 from Brodo. He says, some poker pros grind deep until old age, some to legend status like Doyle Brunson. Do you foresee a similar path for yourself in the DFS streets? Will you be in the streets grinding until you're 80 years old? Or do you have a plan to smell the roses ASAP, somewhere in between? Yeah, good question, Brodo. I've thought about this off and on for a long time. Like even when I was playing a lot of poker in my 20s, we would always make fun of the old guys, Oh, they play so passive. They only 3-bet with aces and kings. They never check raise river without the stones. And we would always talk about how funny it's going to be when we get to be 75 years old in Del Boca Vista, cold 6-betting and bombing it on the river, etc. And then you get in your wheelchair and you go to a 5 p.m. dinner at the clubhouse. As for playing DFS, I mean, I already don't play nearly as much as I used to. I really only play NFL seriously now. I used to play NBA a ton and dabble in some other sports, but I really do love playing NFL DFS. I don't think that'll ever really stop. I just find it so interesting and fun, and I love the grind of it. So yeah, I'm sure at some point I'll play for fun, not for profit as much, but I think I'll always play. I mean, Doyle, who you brought up, I think, is a known loser in the games that he plays now, 2,000, 4,000 mix or whatever insane game they're playing, but he still loves poker and he plays. And I think that's great. Question 4 from Brandon Moss. He says, when was the last time you watched a sporting event with zero skin in the game? Just sat and watched terrible officiating and decisions for fun. Apparently people do this. As someone who can't remember the last time I did this, you seem like the perfect person to talk about it. Yeah, Brandon, people hate this take. They really do. You guys know I say some absurd stuff on here. I have some wild takes. The most anger, the most offended anyone has ever been about something I said on here was when I said I don't understand being a diehard fan. Like rooting for the laundry you have no control over, you have no involvement with whatsoever, yet actually caring if the green team wins or loses. I mean, that sent people up a wall. They were so pissed off when I said that. And I do somewhat understand now why that take offended people. Fandom is about community and family for a lot of people. Meanwhile, I'm just a heartless bastard who just wants to try to figure out what's going to happen in the game and doesn't care about anyone or anything else, which honestly, I wish probably wasn't the case about me. I think I'd probably have a happier life in general if I cared more about relationships, community, human interactions. And, I get it. I'd probably be happier if I cared more about that. It's just not in me right now, but I am working on it. I am. But anyway, back to the question. Yeah, I mean, I have stone cold zero interest in watching any sports without money on it. Life is just too short, man. There's so much I want to do in life before I die, and taking 3 hours to watch, Lakers Celtics on ESPN is just, it's just not on my list. It just isn't. And I don't think that's as controversial of a take as the fan take, because I think a lot of people listening to this connect with that take, and that's really been my favorite thing about doing these solo pods. I think I'm an alien. I'm a freak in public. I can't even interact with people because they're always talking about, TV shows they're watching and, Game of Thrones they're binging or whatever. But at least there's a group of people out there who connect with what I think is funny and what I'm interested in. So yeah, so thank you is what I'm trying to say. Question 5 from Crypto Degen. He says, as player props are getting bigger and bigger and books limit winners, is the only long-term path to be a winning better decentralized / blockchain options? Have you thought about the future of bookmaking? And if so, what do you think it looks like? Yeah, Crypto Degen, I'm certainly intrigued by this kind of thing. And of course, I don't understand it all fully. Like, you guys aren't going to believe this, but I'm not very sophisticated when it comes to blockchain applications and how they work. But I do know that a lot of sharp bettors want to go to the exchange model. Rufus has talked about it a ton. There's at least 3 or 4 exchanges already out there that I know of. And the idea of it makes sense. Instead of betting against a book, betting as another human who wants the other side. The VIG is way less. No one gets limited or banned like they would in a regular book. The issue is that someone has to post that they want something. Someone. And that's dangerous. I don't have a lot of interest in putting 50 props I want on an exchange because I'm just asking to get picked off. What if I have one bad line? I have to monitor all the props I put up. I have to monitor it closely for news, see if the market changes. It's like being a bookie. I don't want to be a bookie. I don't want to do that. An exchange really has to incentivize market makers massively, I think, because you can really get wrecked. I'm not sure if these exchanges are incentivizing market makers massively or not. I'm just saying, I think the exchange model is more complicated than it seems. I also think it's important to realize that people in our bubble, myself included, can have a hard time understanding what the general public wants. Like, obviously, people getting banned and limited want exchanges, but 95 to 99% of the public will never be limited, never be banned. They just want to bet 18 parlays, bet favorites, bet overs, bet single game parlays at 20 to 40% juice. These people have zero interest in an exchange. I interact with these, people all the time. They ask me about betting. I say, oh yeah, I can't bet or whatever. I'm banned. You should see their face. They have no idea this is even a thing. It's only in our bubble. But look, I'm hopeful that we'll see both models be big eventually. Hopeful, serve everyone's interests. So we'll see. Question 6 from Duck. He says, how do you think you would fare in tennis against the top ranked 12, 14, and 16-year-old in the country? Oh man, Duck, I appreciate the confidence, but I would get absolutely wrecked, like stone drawing dead. I've gotten a lot better. Certainly, I'm somewhere between a 4.0 and a 4.5 in USTA rating, I think, right now, maybe closer to 4.5. I don't know. But even a very good 12-year-old is way, way, way better than that. Now, that said, I'd love to play. There's nothing I love more than tennis bets. Quite literally, my favorite thing to do in the world. Give me an option. Have the unprotected with Mila Kunis or get revenge on Bass for the frying pan tennis match. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. Let's play the tennis. So if there's any top-ranked juniors out there who want to play, let me know. It'd be fun. Question 7 from Zach Walther. He says, curious how you navigate work, hobbies, and your relationship with your wife. I'm moving across the country for work with 2 young kids while starting a new job and feel like maintaining a balance is impossible. Would love to hear how you compartmentalize and navigate all this. Yeah, I've gotten some form of this question a ton. Obviously, I don't have all the answers. I just know that you have to cut some things out, which sucks. I wish I could, go to the golf course and hang for 6 hours a day. I wish I could go to Red Rocks once a week with my boys. I wish I could take 4 weeks and go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I wish I could go to Melbourne for the Australian Open tennis. I wish I could take 2 weeks and raft down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. I wish I could spend 2 hours doing a Zoom hang to catch up with my friends from high school. It just is what it is. I prioritize family, i.e. my relationship with my wife and my kids, and work. And beyond that, there's really not much time for much else at this point in my life. And that is not a complaint. I fear my kids are going to find these solo pods one day and they'll be in therapy for the rest of their life for sure. I'm really, really not complaining. It's just the reality. Some things in life are going to fall by the wayside. And I think if you go into that with your eyes open, it's better off. All right. Last question we're going to do today. Question 8 comes from Rob8642370. He says, I'm backpacking Europe solo next month. Any advice on getting on the hashtag team across the pond? Oh, baby, I am jealous, Rob8642370. Sounds truly incredible. I've done a few Europe trips in my life, never solo, but I have done a few Europe trips in my life. Always, always, always an awesome trip. If you guys haven't watched the movie Euro Trip, it was a 2004 movie. I mean, absolute must. Such gold, so good. Matt Damon singing Scotty Doesn't Know. I mean, it's really amazing. As for the question about getting on the team, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm obviously drawing stone dead, but I think the play is probably to stay in hostels, although I could never personally face the hostels, but I think that's probably the play. You stay in the hostel. There's other people there traveling solo. They're looking to party, find themselves, have experiences, whatever. I got to think that's a good place to start. But the more that I think about it, instead of asking me about this, Rob, you should just be watching Euro Trip. Much better game plan in there. Check it out. Godspeed and GL. Let us know how it goes. All right. That is going to do it for this edition of the Solo Pod. I'll be back later today with Silva for the Team by Team Pods, where we will recap everything we saw in week 9 and start looking ahead to week 10. Pretty crazy. Halfway through the season. If you are on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe. We do have a goal of 30,000 YouTube subscribers before the end of the NFL season. We'd really appreciate if you could help us out. For producer Luke, for the most beautiful beast in the world, Jerry, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.